I'm a big fan of Helldivers overall. I think there are some issues, and especially around its initial release, there were some issues that I really didn't like. Some things that really bothered me about that game. There are some performance issues, some things with the coding that has presented problematic gameplay, and I am just philosophically against kernel level anti-cheat. Anti-cheat, I'm on board with. If you don't want people cheating in your game, I get it. Kernel level anti-cheat, no. It's not. It doesn't make sense. It's a security vulnerability that you're placing on my PC for the sake of a video game.
Right.
Before we begin, the Gamers Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AMKomnenos, Banana, and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Before, when something was no longer supported, the software was there and we could play them on, like I could now, right now, get on a Star Wars Galaxies private server and play. But that's because it's no longer supported. It's, you know, it's not a copyright thing. It's, you know, nobody's taking that game and selling it. Right. So, I think with that issue that you're talking about is the big reason why companies are saying we can't do that anymore, because they're releasing these things in microtransactions. And now when you no longer support the game is not the game itself anymore, because it's been parceled and picked apart, that it's not, you can't release that anymore. But if they didn't do that type of design, then they could release it in an unsupported format. I almost feel like
that is the exact point of Stop Killing Games, is stop building games for obsolescence. Stop structuring your game design in a way that you have to abandon this in order to keep moving on as a company, and you just leave players holding nothing.
And that's an important part of general consumer rights that we've been fighting for in the last few years. And you see it in wider fields. You see it in things like telephones, the right to repair, as opposed to the necessity to replace and planned obsolescence. It's something that's much, much broader than Stop Killing Games, and it's what made the pushback against Stop Killing Games such a bizarre take. Because what we're seeing here is an attempt to get this analyzed at a higher level, at a intra-governmental level, in the European Parliament. It's not a law proposition. It's a push by a consumer rights movement.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Yeah, and I can't stand the argument that says if it's a contract and you agreed to it, then you're bound to it. No, I'm not.
Bullshit. Go and look at TNS conditions. Go and look at how many dodgy contracts.
The fact that you will sell me a game before I can read that contract, and then reserve the right to update that contract however many times you want over the course of this, means to me this is a contract signed almost under duress. This is an inherently unfair situation to put somebody in.
And there is in common law systems, I think probably all of them, from what I know, a whole bunch, there is precedent that you are not subject to the full conditions of these contracts, because you can't be reasonably expected to have read and understood them. They're too wordy, they're too bulky, they're attached to everything. They are incredibly
and there's a new one every week.
And there's a new one every week, constantly being updated by companies that will attempt to retroactively change them. There's no way a consumer can be expected to do this. And anyway, a contract that I'm agreeing to, it has more credence if I had some point of discussion in the creation of this contract. There is no negotiation in this contract whatsoever. The contract that you get at the start of a video game is accept it or fuck you and your $60.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are essentially signing it under duress. It's a very, very mild form of duress, but essentially you are.
There's several court cases that have shown that if a contract is made in bad faith, or it's that there was a preceding law that negated it to begin with, then there would have been no structure for that contract to have any weight. And that has happened over and over. So,
and this might depend partially on where you live, but contracts can't override law. Like if we sign a contract saying, it's okay for me to set fire to your bumhole. Like, well, We might have done, but generally there's going to be laws against this under much higher standards than me doing that. If I agree, I can't remember what the word is, but it's the weighting that you apply to certain arguments in a court of law. So you would say, okay, there's a case where this person says this person says that. How are we going to decide? They both make valid points. Well, ultimately, you look at which part is worth more. And you'll find in places like the United States, if something is a freedom of speech case, then freedom of speech as a right is weighed very, very heavily. You're going to have to come up with something pretty fucking stark to go against that. If you're in Germany, then if the case rests on human dignity, which is the first article of the German constitution, it's the first because it's the most precedent. If you have a case that's going to involve someone defending by the right of their human dignity, you have to come up with a very fucking compelling case to override that, because we deem that overrides everything. And as well as that, depending on which country you're in, contracts can have none influence on your legal protections. In France, for example, you cannot sign a consent waiver in this country. It doesn't exist. If you say that, this activity is dangerous, please sign a consent waiver because, X could happen or Y could happen. In France, it doesn't matter if you sign a consent waiver. It has zero legal validity in this country. Zero. Your rights remain your rights whether or not you decide in that one moment, oh, well, I knew this was dangerous. No. The foundation is still there that the person setting up this, whatever it might be, activity or whatever, in a commercial sense, they can't just say, well, we knew the bungee cord was a bit of shit, so we had all of our people sign the waiver. No, it's still their prerogative, obligation to make sure that it's in that viable state. How do we get here?
Yeah, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's the basis of it, because there is EU law that defines what a product is and how it is sold, which is directly against what these EULAs are saying, that it's a license. A license in an Adobe or some other utilitarian software is different, because you're generating a product that actually is being used to refine other media or other products, CAD or something. That makes sense as a subscription. Well, but a game is and a game is a utilitarian. So it's not just purely utilitarian, it's an entertainment value. So it is something you purchase then and there. It is yours. So that's when commerce is exchanged. So
it would be different if when you went to purchase a game, if you had two options, if there was buy this game or rent this game, like we would have done 20 years ago in video stores. In that case, I would be entering in knowing that in 2 days, in that case, or in 2 months or whatever, I'm going to lose access to this. I know when I sign up for Game Pass that if I stop paying for Game Pass, I lose access to those games. And if I didn't finish them, tough shit. That's the way it goes. That's what I agreed to. The principle of putting buy on those storefronts, and it's the same in French. It says acheter, which is to buy. It's the same in German. It says kaufen, which is to buy. The implication of that in common parlance, which matters, because when you're talking to consumers, legalese and redefining terms in articles and so forth like that, it doesn't matter. You're talking to your consumer via your storefront. Your language is clear. The word buy means buy, and that word has a very specific meaning in both dictionary terms and in common parlance. And when the word means buy, it means buy. So for this then to say that, well, buy is a big word, buy has multiple meanings depending on who you ask. If this kind of stuff actually goes to court and is resolved at a high level, there is no way that it would fall in favor of the people putting these contracts in place. But they know that no one's going to fucking stand up to it because it's a massive pain in the ass. And ultimately, if you have places like the USA as well, where judging, I don't know what the word is, judges are highly politicized. The judgery is a highly politicized position where you vote in your judges. Well, now it depends who's on your district court. It depends who's on your federal court at this one time. It depends who's on the circuit court right now. It depends who's in the Supreme Court right now. You've got organizations. There was a court case back in 2011 when Netflix was sued for the lack of subtitles and closed captions on their platform. That case never went beyond a district is below circuit, right? District circuit Supreme. It never went past the district court, that lowest level. Never went past there. Netflix were ordered by the district court to go and put subtitles on all their things and yada, yada, yada. And they actually did it within 2 years. It was never taken above that level, ever. And now I don't think anyone would take it above that level because of what you might get from the Supreme Court. Ultimately, when it gets there, they're probably not going to rule in favor of those groups. No. So it's just that there's so many finicky aspects to this whole thing, and ultimately we need some fucking fair-minded resolution from a body that you can actually trust. And honestly, I'd take Brussels at this point. If it has to come from somewhere, if it has to come from the European Union, fine, I'll take it. If we can raise those standards of people around the world, it'd be about fucking time. So I'd like to see this initiative go through, and a whole host of other initiatives related to gamer rights, for that matter.
Because, like I said, it all comes full circle. Because the language is saying that they can withdraw a game support without notice. And that's what they want changed. It's like, well, no, you have to give us notice. Even if it's a 6-month notice, at least you're giving us notice. You're saying at any time you can pull this plug. That's not fair or equitable in any way, shape, or form. Just make it, Valve solved, I said this before, Valve solved this years ago. They just make their stuff offline, accessible. They fixed this years ago. This is nothing new, but because of the way that the architecture behind games now is making it to where they get to eat their cake, they get to have their cake and eat it too, because they're basically saying, hey, look, we can withdraw support at any time, and now we're not making it accessible to anybody, because guess what? It's not accessible. We can't put it in a format that you could access it.
And this is something which gives me the biggest bullshit detector going off. You can't convince me that some of the larger studios couldn't just get some fucking second house studio in and come and say to them, look, we've got this game when it's going to go offline in 6 months because it was shit or whatever. It currently runs in this very centralized way. We can't put this out there. We can't give someone access to this, but we're going to need you to help us out. Go and refig this so it fits on so people can localize their servers, basically. There's no reason why you couldn't do this. And if we're going to say, but what about small studios, where this happens, it's going to be a big risk for them. No, you'll do what we do with everything fucking else. For small studios, you put fucking caveats in the law. It's not that hard. We do this in all sorts of situations. There's all sorts of things where larger companies are subject to different rules than smaller ones. It's not a rare thing.
I don't understand the argument that says, oh, well, it's not fair to those companies, no matter how large they are. If we're talking Ubisoft or whatever, it's not fair to them to have to keep a server up just for a game that's not supported. That's the point. Nobody's asking them to do that. We're asking them to take it offline. Mm-hmm. That's the point.
I think anyone who'd say that is misunderstanding the whole thing, and can be safely disregarded.
I don't get any opposition to the Stop Killing Games movement. It just makes so much sense.
But that's really it, right? I can see how later, when this is being codified and legalized, I can see why there are reasons at this point where we might want to disagree on the details.
Yes, when you're developing legislation about how this gets implemented, there will be counterpoint. Yeah. At this point, I don't see any reason to argue against. We should think about this, which is what the current movement is. We should think about this.
Let me give you worst case, best case. So worst case scenario, it gets passed, even it gets looked at and says, hey, look, yeah, they have to do all this, and then nothing changes. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is they actually make a language appear that they have to give us notice, and if nothing else, even if it's not available offline, we can prepare that 6 months down the road this game will no longer be in a playable state.
Worst case scenario is actually that the lawmakers completely botch their handling of this and make a worse situation. That's the worst case scenario. Let's not forget that they've I think many of our representatives in elected office have shown that they're not always the most up to date on technological issues. So we'll see.
I don't know what you're talking about. I watched them ask questions about TikTok for fucking months, and goddamn, do we have some technology geniuses in office.
I could imagine that the worst case scenario would be consumers have to pay Ubisoft for putting down their games.
Oh God, yeah.
You paid $50. Well, as a service charge for them having to shut it down, you're gonna have to pay another $5.
Worst case scenario, they do redefine every single language dictionary to say that the word buy doesn't actually mean buy.
Right.
Every word buy is preceded by up in parentheses conditionally.
Yeah. Like I said, a license is one thing, but we're not buying a license, and I hate that term. They need to get that off.
Yeah.
I think it is fundamentally different for software and video games, because a video game is the product and software is the tool to create a product.
And even more than that, I think licenses short term for things like Adobe or Resolve or whatever it might be, they're actually pretty consumer friendly. If there's an option to buy as well, generally that's what you want, because most people use these products relatively short term. They want it for a month or two. They want the most updated version. I've mentioned before, I use it with music mixing. Most music mixing software is available on short-term licenses. You get it for like $20 or something for a month or two. You get a big expansive plugins package. You get all the modern version of the software. And yeah, if you do that for 2 years, it's more expensive than buying the software. But you don't do it for 2 years because you have the choice to do one or the other, and that's what matters. It's the, can I buy this game as a license? Can I rent this game in license form, wherever it is? Or can I buy it? Oh, sorry. And can I buy it? Can it be both of them? If it's both of them, I've got no problem with short-term licenses. If it's both, as long as it's to the advantage of the consumer, because let's face it, most things are weighted naturally in favor of the producer. Most of them in this, because the problem is we want what they have. So we need to almost be protected from ourselves with a legal structure and foundation. So we need that. And everything should be done on a legal level to push towards consumer friendliness. That would be fine. And I'm curious where this ends up, because all we're getting to right now is a petition of 1 million something people who hopefully are mostly Europeans, because it kind of has to be that.
Yeah.
It's a petition of 1 million plus people, which will hopefully go on to be discussed, hopefully go on to be analysed, hopefully go on to be legislated for. And even if they do, that parliament doesn't move quickly. It doesn't move quickly. It's fucking 27 member countries. It's 27 with different voting blocks. These don't all come into this with the same perspectives. It's not going to happen fast, no matter what it is.
And some of the bigger companies that are actually probably that would work with this are groups like CD Projekt and stuff. They would work with that. I don't see them saying, "Oh, if we have to go offline, then that would be." I don't see them microtransactioning anything to death. Larian, definitely not. So,
well, a lot of their reputation is, or the goodwill that they have, is based upon the fact that we feel they have what's best for gamers in mind. I don't think it's necessarily always true, but when your image is that heavily linked to it, they've got every incentive to actually do that. Just very quickly, that Netflix thing from a few years ago, ultimately they could have appealed against their loss, but they realized that it was to their advantage to put captions on there because consumers appreciate it. And actually, in the end, you've got like however many people in the US are hard of hearing. So it's a lot of people. Now, these are people who can buy your service. And there are gamers who conscientiously oppose buying games that they feel are in some way contrary to their morals. So if you decide as a gamer that you're not going to buy any game from a company that opposed this, well, the companies that didn't oppose this suddenly have a much, much bigger group of people to whom they can sell their games. And that's the way you've got to frame it to companies, is you've got to frame it as a commercial advantage to them. It's not that this is an obligation for you, it's that this is better for you. This is something where you come out with more money that you can stuff up your fucking corporate assholes.
Yeah, and I just think, well, not less so for the Stop Killing Games movement, but for the American audience, it is going to be very tough to convince them that any corporation, any company gives that much of a shit about image anymore, because all of them feel very much like we don't care. Like we recognize that we only give a shit about your wallet.
Yeah.
We're not going to pretend anymore.
There's a large degree of what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You want what we have. Good luck. You have no foot to stand on, and you've got no reason to expect that they're going to do something out of the goodness of their hearts, especially if these companies are publicly traded, which most of them are, which means that they then have a legal obligation to be as much of an asshole to you as they can be.
Yeah, it's turned into a meme now that a lot of people can't, like, once you have subtitles on, it gets pretty addictive. Like, you can't even pay attention to what's going on unless you're reading the subtitles at the same time. Like, you're hearing something and you're trying to do something else at the same time and you're not understanding it all. You have to almost have the subtitles to keep up.
It's not the same thing, but this is what we need to end up with this idea of Stop Killing Games, is it just needs to become normalized. You don't watch a movie now and go, oh, it's got closed captions. Oh, it's just, of course it has closed captions. Of course it does. We need to be at a point where we say, oh, wow, when you buy this game, there's no weird license fuckery. Oh, well, wow, when you buy this game, you actually own it. No, that just needs to be the most accepted fucking common level. Yeah, obviously you own it because you clicked on the button that said buy. We need to be at that point.
Yeah. If a developer, and I hate going down this road because that would lead to a different launcher, but like Rockstar said, hey, look, you have access to all of our games for $5 a month.
Fine. If it's an open and honest subscription service, I'm fine with that.
There you go. That's the difference. But when I purchase a single game that you are selling separately, should have access to that all the time, even offline. So for instance, like I brought up Adobe, with the Adobe Cloud, I don't just have, Premiere Pro, which I use all the time for our editing, but I have no less than at least 16 or 17 main programs with that. Plus the Adobe stock, I have fonts, I have everything in the world, Illustrator, and that's all under one. And that doesn't happen when you buy one game. So if I'm paying for a license for a game, you better be giving me a whole lot more than just this game.
Licensing is not an inherently bad thing. Licensing can be consumer friendly. It's just this one simple, very clear practice used by the video game industry is not consumer friendly. And that's ultimately like where my principle will lie on this. It's really simple and straightforward. To as much as it's reasonably possible, consumer choice and consumer friendliness should be the number one priority of these legislative bodies.
Yeah, and it may be like the litmus test for gaming has changed a little bit over the years. Before, we used to really digest our games. We would play games over a year or 2, 4, 5, 8 years. Now it's like, who's the first, the game just came out, so somebody's got to stream it right away for content, or somebody's got to release stuff for content. So everything's consumed so rapidly now that I kind of see, I can give credit to the devs to say, or the publishers to say, well, this is how games are consumed nowadays, so we have to change the model. Not really. It's just the way it
because
is.
Because that's it's. I would say it's an excuse. They'd say it's a reason, and I'd say the real truth is it's a reason being used as an excuse. It's there's no real founding there. That is begging the question. You've done something, and then you need to justify it in hindsight and say, oh no, this is why we did it, because it's better this way. No, it's bullshit.
Because everybody consumes these games within a month now, or a week.
So why does that mean I don't need to own it?
That's right.
There is no relation between that. It's actually about as much of a non sequitur as you could ever come up with. It's completely unrelated. You remember the episode when it was, and we all remember the main villain, and it was capitalism, Apollo Creed, and it was just all nonsense? It's that. It's that as an answer. It's not a response.
I feel good.
Living in America.
Yeah.